starting off this video at number 10 is the Sabi Maru. This cool looking blade works best against enemies who are very aggressive like the monks, ninjas and nightjars. It also inflicts poison status on the enemies too. However, it does come with some serious drawbacks. 1. Persistent use of it absolutely drains your spirit emblems. 2. The poison affliction hardly does any serious damage. And 3. It's almost useless against bosses and larger enemies who hit right through it. The main positive for me is that the Sabi Maru looks aesthetically pleasing to watch. I've even used it in my no-hit run against the Block Saint myself, just because I thought it'd look cool. Let's be honest, against normal enemies, a couple of well-timed parries will end the fight in no time compared to waiting for the poison to do its damage. Sadly, the Sabi Maru wasn't as good as I expected it to be, but if you want to look cool while fighting, then maybe it's for you. Coming in at number 9, we have the Divine Abduction. Initially, this tool feels OP as it looks like you can pretty much one-shot any enemy in the game, and although it's not a tool I use that often, it definitely has its moments to shine. Its final upgrade, the Golden Vortex, turns weaker enemies into dust and makes them drop all their items and money instantly. Against some of the harder guys, they don't exactly vanish, but they still drop all their goodies without the need to kill them. I personally like to use it during XP farming runs to one-shot that one enemy that you just can't backstab. The problem with it is that there's still a bunch of enemies you just can't one-shot with it, like the Spear Adept guys or the Purple Ninjas, even though you can still one-hit kill them if you just sneak up on them. The other issue is that its base form is absolutely useless against bosses. However, it does have a hidden gem of a skill that goes unnoticed. If you manage to buy the Living Force skill, this allows you to charge up the tool and then immediately drive forward with a sword attack. This move turns enemies around, making them vulnerable to a death blow. Similarly, on bosses, they also go for a spin, allowing you to get 2 or 3 solid hits on their health because they can't block from behind. It's worth noting that most likely you'll have this skill very late game or even new game plus. So the question is, does it give you enough of an advantage to justify you using so many emblems in a fight? For me, the tools you're about to see next are just much more useful, and you'll see why soon. Coming in at number 8 is the Whistle tool. Easily one of the most underrated tools in the game. If you take a stealthy Metal Gear style approach, you can distract enemies and tactically kill them off one by one. The biggest advantage though comes when you have the fully upgraded version, the Malcontent Whistle. This whistle torments the headless mini-bosses and the Demon of Hatred, allowing you to almost completely steal an entire life off them. You can even use it to cheese a certain Lone Shadow mini-boss. I'll leave a link below on how to cheese all mini-bosses if you want to check that out. The whistle is mainly known for being useful against the headless, so if you're smart about how you use it, you can play these simple tricks on enemies and kill them off, leaving you with possibly a 1v1 battle for your next target, or even allowing you to stealth load the remaining enemies. A really cool version is the Delayed Whistle. This makes the whistle sound a few seconds later, allowing you to get into that prime spot to one-shot every enemy. Personally, I like to be a bit more aggressive, but now and then a sneaky approach is needed, so it really depends on your playstyle if you want to make the most of the whistle. Next up at number 7 is the Spear. I'm a little sad to see the Spear so low on the list because if you know when and where to use it, it's actually really effective. But it just goes to show how highly I rate the other tools in this list, and you'll see why soon. Probably the 2 most common places to use the Spear is when you pull the worm out of the Guardian Ape's neck and when you strip off the armour off the Red Guard. Sadly, the only other strip show we're going to get is the occasional Ugly Giants. But the variety of different ways you can use the Spear is pretty damn cool. You can use the Cleave attack to hit a group of enemies in front of you, and the Spiral Spear rush attack is especially handy against the Nightjar ninjas on the rooftops. That is, if you actually chose to fight them and not run away. And if you buy the Chasing Sly skill, it's very handy to get 2 attacks in from range to get close. You can even get a bit stylish with it if you want and use it in mid-air. Though I would avoid using it on Owl unless you know exactly what you're doing, otherwise this might happen. Coming in at number 6, the Flame Vent. Who doesn't like wielding a bright flaming sword? Not only is it easy on the eyes, but fire always seems to be a weakness to a lot of enemies, and it's no different here. It also inflicts burn status on enemies, making it harder for them to recover their posture, and because they're staggered at the same time, you can get multiple hits in with your flaming sword after. Using it in midair is not as effective, but if you use it as you're landing after using the Sakura dance move, it's as good as stringing together combos in a game that isn't exactly a hack and slash kind of game. Its final upgrade applies the same buff as Divine Confetti and gives it that cool purple glow. But this isn't just for aesthetics. It does more damage, and even if your attacks are blocked, the flames still inflict damage on your targets. You can even throw oil at enemies or bosses and then use the flame vent to burn them even quicker. Another cool ability is that you can charge and release a massive blast on enemies or bosses. The blast has so much force behind it that it knocks you back and your opponent, allowing you to attack and evade at the same time. The process of applying flames to your sword seems to be a reoccurring ability in many From Software games, and understandably so. If I really had to give it any drawbacks, it would just be that the flames don't last long enough and that it costs 3 emblems to use, but as it can be used in pretty much any situation in the game, I think it's worth it. Flaming swords are nice and all, but shurikens are the ultimate ninja tool and for me deserves to be in the top 5. It's the only projectile weapon you have in the game and it's especially useful against those damn annoying dogs, wolves. It can also be used to close the distance between you and your target by using the chasing slice skill. I like to follow this up with the nightjar / reversal skill to backflip away because I think it looks good, but that's just me. It can even be used to knock enemies out of the air, doing reasonable posture damage and leaving them vulnerable. But some of the shuriken upgrades are absolutely insane. The lady butterfly upgrade does huge amount of damage when you use it with a power sugar, and you can even use it to kill bosses like the headless underwater from a comfortable distance. Another ridiculous upgrade is the Sen throw. If you're getting filthy rich and maybe you're in your second playthrough, you should really use this with an Akko or Yashiriku sugar. The posture damage it does is insane, and it can take a whole life off some bosses with just this. In its simplest form, it can be used to just disrupt enemy attacks if they're becoming aggressive or unpredictable. Costing only 1 or 2 emblems depending on the variation, the shuriken is a perfect side weapon to have equipped with minimal drawbacks. In at number 4 is the umbrella. This is the perfect tool for newcomers as well as Sekiro enthusiasts, though it could have easily been in the top 3 had it not become almost useless in New Game Plus, and I'll explain why in a second. But in your first playthrough, the umbrella provides the ultimate protection in a game where almost every enemy is super aggressive and out to get you. If you're in your first playthrough, you can just sit there and use the umbrella and block anything coming at you. Using the first upgrade, you can absorb projectiles like missiles and gunfire and then release that energy back onto enemies, inflicting massive posture damage. But it can also be used to parry, but with an extended and more generous timing window. This is extremely useful for the more difficult parries against, say, the Block Saint's quickfire or Genichiro's flurry combo. It makes getting that perfect parry that little bit easier. Perfect for those trying to get a no-hit run and look good doing it. The massive downside is that this ultimate protection doesn't exist if you decide to play New Game Plus charmless. And New Game Plus is a must if you want 100% Sekiro. Playing without Kuro charm in New Game Plus means you'll take chip damage on your health if you block, and that includes blocking with the umbrella. So using the Lilac umbrella to block all those terror attacks, or if you just want to block all that gunfire, it's a no-go in New Game Plus, so you may as well put the umbrella away for most of the game. That aside though, it's an absolute lifesaver for your first playthrough. Getting to the business end, I'm putting the axe at number 3. This is just an absolute beast of a weapon. If you've not seen my cheese video on all mini bosses, check it out. This weapon can be used to destroy more than 50% of the game's bosses, including the Glock Saint himself. Its sheer posture damage is second to none, especially when coupled with the Yashiriku sugar. For a majority of enemy attacks, you won't get knocked back if the enemy hits you whilst you're using the axe. You'll hit right through their attacks as long as you have enough health to live. The flame axe is even better because it inflicts burn status as well as the heavy posture damage. Its most obvious and useful ability is that it can break enemy shields and instantly break their posture, allowing you to go in for a quick death blow. It only requires 2 spirit emblems for the ridiculous power that it offers as well. The one skill you must buy is the Fang and Blade skill, and it can be acquired pretty early game. This allows you to do the 2-hit combo with the axe and the sword. I personally like to use the combination of Fistful of Ash with the axe, as it can put a stop to even the most heavy hitting mini bosses like 7 Ashina Spears. The only drawback is that it can be slow to use, but that's only a natural trade-off because of the power that it offers. The incredible power of the Lazulite axe, the final upgrade, combined with the Yashirika sugar, almost reminds me of the almighty Thor, but even still, I'm ranking 3 more tools above this, and you'll see why in a second. Taking my number 2 spot is the firecrackers. Hands down, this is the most reliable tool in the whole game. It's the perfect tool to get you out of a tricky situation and can also be used against almost every single enemy and boss in the game. It's even more effective against beasts, whether that's Gyobu's horse, the guardian ape, or the damn blazing bull. If you use it to its max potential, you can even use it repeatedly on mini or main bosses and destroy an entire life without letting them retaliate, and that even goes for one of the game's end bosses. Its final upgrade though is a bit of a hit and miss for me. It does extra posture damage, which is great. The downside is, it has a delay in when the firecrackers are set off, and in a lot of situations you need those firecrackers to set off instantly, so I prefer using the long spark firecrackers. I also tend to use the puppeteer ninjutsu to get enemies on my side because I think it's a really OP skill, but during a boss fight you might just get smacked around trying to re-puppet your target. That's when firecrackers come in to buy you the time you need to use the puppet skill again, or whatever else it is you want to do. If you haven't seen my top 10 puppets versus bosses video, I'll leave a link in the description so you can check that out after. Sekiro enemies just seem to be relentless, they never stop, so firecrackers slow things down a bit, giving you the time to get a breather to plan your next move, and that's why it takes my number 2 spot. Before I reveal the number 1 spot, let me know in the comments your top 3 prosthetic tools you would have in your 3 default slots, or if you're one who doesn't really use the tools, then which one would you consider using after seeing this top 10. Also leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe if you want to see more like this. Taking that all-important number 1 spot for me is none other than the Mistraven. This is hands down the coolest tool there is. There's almost no scenario in Sekiro that you can't use the Mistraven. It even works against the gigantic serpent when you're not even supposed to use it. You can even reverse lightning and deflect it in such a smooth way and without losing health at the same time. You can also use it to teleport behind your target and counter with whatever combat art you feel like using. The final upgrade version engulfs your teleporting path in flames, burning enemies near you at the same time, making it even more effective. If you stand still and use it, you'll teleport above your enemy and come down with a slam attack on their head. It's easily the best counter-attacking tool in the game. If you're an anime fan like me, then you may have heard of the substitution jutsu from Naruto, an anime all about shinobis, and Mistraven is very similar to that. It's the ultimate shinobi tool to vanish and reappear somewhere else and counter-attack. You can even use it as you're falling in midair and immediately vanish to evade the attack. This can then lead you into stringing together a combination of moves using combat arts and prosthetic tools all at the same time. Costing just 2 spirit emblems to use or 3 for the flame variation, this is one tool you really should use, not just because of how good it is, but because of how much fun it is to play with it. In the end, this is just my personal preference on what I think is the coolest but most useful tool to use after hundreds of hours of playing Sekiro. I'm sure not everybody agrees completely with this list, so let me know in the comments what tools you would rank as your top 3. Don't forget to check out these videos next, they're also linked in the description, but thanks for watching and I'll see you guys in the next one.